Hi, it's Lil from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Let's have a quick look at this. This is what we're going to be making today. If you have a sort of cheaper end piece of furniture, a piece of pine, and you want to give it a Moroccan sort of vibe, I've created this whole look with just one stencil, layered paint, and a little bit of ingenuity. And this is what you can create from next to nothing. So if you want to do something like this, keep on watching. Hi, it's Lil from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. And today I'm going to be talking over free finds. What do you do? They're maybe not always your choice. They maybe don't have nice legs. They maybe don't have all the vintage redeeming features that you would like in a piece, but you're not going to see something go to landfill. It's just not going to happen. So if you can save a piece along the way, you're going to do this. And this is this piece here. This piece here is a white pine, it was a pine dresser. The person that had it, who didn't want it anymore, has painted it white, and can I just say they've done a really nice job of upcycling it. It's smooth, it's everything you would want. My only problem is it's glaringly white. So we're going to get on and make this over, and today's video is all about stenciling. How to put texture under stencils, how to do two-tone stencils, how to make stencils work, how to use pieces and parts of stencils. I've done lots of different stenciling videos, but stenciling to me is the best form of transforming a piece of furniture, the best way of making something look amazing with not a lot of money and with very little effort, really, to be honest with you. Stencils, they don't disappear, they don't break, they can be used repeatedly over and over and over again if you look after them. They're not the cost of transfers, they're not the cost of inlays or molds or all the other bells and whistles that you would want. Stencils are a one-time only deal that you pay for, which was a repeated use. You can use pieces and parts of stencils, you can use this stencil and this stencil. Stenciling is the way to go. And a little quick plug here, we're bringing out our own stencil range very, very soon, but I don't think I'm going to be incorporating any of mine into this. I might. What can I say about this piece? It's pine. It's reasonably well made. It's not the best quality of pine. It's got the bog standard sort of, and look, bless her, she's even done a wee white line across there. What can I say about it? It's reasonably well made. These shells get removed. So I'll be removing those to paint. We'll be adding a whole load of texture. I've got a wee inspo picture here. I saw this door. What did I like about it? I like the mauve, the blue underneath. I like the gold with the sort of almost a toned down berry. It's not my usual bright in your face sort of thing, and I'm going to use the white of the piece to my advantage, I'm hoping. So I'm going to be adding some water to this as well. I'm going to be doing a little bit of frottage, a little bit of texture. I'm going to be doing some raised stenciling as well and some ordinary stenciling. So buckle in. This is one that everything else can sometimes be a little bit like, this is the formula to do this. This one here, haven't got a formula, just got a picture. This is what I want to try and do, or something like this. It's not going to be anything like this, but this was my inspo. So let's just get on and do it. Okay, so in here I have Giverny. Now there's a story to this. When the really frosty weather hit in the winter, some of my paint was left in here, not much, and some of it didn't matter because it was just tiny amounts, and I've managed to work my way down this. But this was half a can of Annie Sloan's Giverny and it froze, and this is what happens when paint freezes. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that paint. It's just really textured now, and that is exactly what we're looking for. Do you want me to do that again, Martin, so you can? Yeah, it's just big lumps of clay all frozen together, and that's how it ends up looking. So the Giverny is the base coat for the top, the sides, this board down the bottom, this side of the dresser, the top of the dresser, and the insides of the dresser. So all the back section, the front, this, no. But all of the outside edges, yes. And then the inside of the top part. So all I'm going to do is, I'm going to start applying this. Now you can already see how yummy that texture is going to be. Now it doesn't make all areas textured. I've added quite a bit of hot water to this this morning, so it'll give me some smoother areas. And I'm kind of doing a sort of higgledy-piggledy, being a wee bit more heavy on the corners, you know, like, and the edges, like that. I want them to be quite heavy. The centre part here, not too much. I'm kind of really working at that to kind of smooth it out a wee bit, every which way. And that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to get on and do that. So the next time I come back, all the bits that I have supposed to be blue will be blue. Okay, so I've got the Jiminy applied. I've also done a kind of little rim just around here. I've done the top half as well, and just in what I'm about to show you. So for the second coat, I have not got any texture in it. It's just a sort of kind of cloudy, sort of purpley, veering towards more of the purples and the blues. It's a lavendery sort of colour. I'm kind of like, where it's really heavily textured, I'm just kind of gonna scrape over it, you know, with my brush like this. I don't want to kind of eradicate and I do want some of this peeking through, but not lots of it. Just some parts of it. How much you want to show through is entirely up to you, and I'm doing two different ways. I'm applying my paint in every way strokes, but I'm also, when it comes to the texture, I'm kind of like doing it sort of more of a sort of stippling effect, so that I can get a little bit more sort of colour coming through of the blue. And all I'm going to do now is literally, I'm just going to do all the pieces that I've painted blue, I'm just going to paint over with this purpley colour, and then we'll get to the next coat. So I've mixed up a sort of minty greeny blue paint, and I've added, not too much water, but it's runnier than usual. You can see it's Annie Sloan paint, so it's normally much thicker than that. And I have a brush to apply, a sponge in this hand, and a water bottle. Now I don't want to saturate this piece because obviously I'm in the workshop, and in the studio it's going to take forever and a day to dry. So you could take it outside if you live in warmer climate and do it outside. It'd be much easier. But for me, this is the best way I can do it. So I'm wanting now to cover this, to kind of like now kind of bed it all back. Now my inspo pictures were like this, so I'm not sticking to those, but I know where I'm kind of going with it, and these are the sort of colours that I'm kind of choosing to go with. So I've got, you know, a fair amount on my brush, and I'm putting it on, and I'm going to just kind of add, I was hoping it would run a wee bit more than this, and I wasn't going to have to add too much water. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to, in thicker and darker areas all around the piece, give it a little bit of a texture with a sponge, and can you see where it's a wee bit darker there? And just kind of go round the piece now and just give it all the kind of once over with the green. That gives it lots of different sort of kind of texture. So I'm putting it on quite thick here. Sorry, Martin, just move that along. Good squish of water and a big pat out, and I'm going to mix that into there. So you can see what's happening. I've got some brush strokes here where I put it on, and then you can just see, and I'm going to leave some of the revealed areas of the purple because I'm going to sand this once it's dry and bring back some of the blue and maybe some of the white of the original. So this is just how I'm going to go with the whole piece now, right across it. Some darker like this, some more sponged areas like that. Give it a little bit of movement before we do go on to our stenciling. I'm trying not to labour too long on the actual paint, you know, finish itself, but this is what I'm doing all over. Something that I never noticed just as I was going to paint it is this one's got a recess in here. Obviously they've replaced the store at some point, but we'll just work with that. Right, I've mixed up a yellow, Annie Sloan colours. It's a kind of off yellow. I put a little bit of cornflower in it. Now I want to have a sort of brown round here, yellow in here, with a just touch of white in here. This is all going to be stamped over, so it's not our life's work here. So let's just kind of get some of this on. I notice there's some wee bits of blue that are scooshed down over it, but I'm okay with that. So I'm only going to take it so far in to my edges before I start putting my brown on. Yeah, just something like that. Now you can see, because I put these colours here, I want to butt my brown up against that, if you know what I mean. So just got my brown here, and I've just got it on a small brush. So I'm going to do something like this, and I'm not going heavy with the brown because I want it to look just like a dirty sort of shady colour before I put all my stamping on. So something like this. We'll get to making it look pretty in a minute, because right now it doesn't look incredibly ugly. So something like that. Just going to use the same brush here. I'm going to give my brush a scoosh, not my work. And I'm just going to do something like, I want this to be kind of uneven, but go into this colour here, if you know what I mean. So something like, I can bring it up into there. Just going to bring that brown into my yellow. I'm happy with it at this side. I'm going to put a bit more water on my brush. And I'm going to do the same process with my drawers and my my back panel of the dresser, something like this, and just take it down in, bring it up into here like this. Put a wee bit of water on it there, just make it help it, so that I've got this sort of edge of the blue with this sort of, I didn't heavily distress the blue on the front when I did the initial purple with the texture, the tilting, which was the blue that I started with. I didn't go crazy with that. Now, kind of liking what I'm seeing here. I don't want that white part. I do want some of the white parts when I sand it back. Oh, and the whole carcass right now is just kind of completely drying before I can sand it back. So I'm quite happy with this. But what I'm going to do is just on my mixed mat is I've got a bit of Versailles, which is a creamy yellow. I'm just going to dip my brush in it. And I'm just going to do something like this. Just kind of rub it in. Just give me a wee bit of a lighter patch in the centre. But kind of highlight. I'm not kind of looking for it to be a specific kind of size. I'm just kind of, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not happy with this part down here. I'm just going to dip in my yellow again and just bring that down. These little parts in here I'll get to. But that's what I'm going to do. Here, on the back of the top of the dress. So I'm going to get on and do that now. So before I put all the design work, I just want to have something in the background, and I'm just using white because I was kind of looking at my inspo spray. Now, stenciling, how do we do it right? Well, you need to have your paint ready and offload it, so you don't want too much on your brush. I'm a bit scared that this comes out kind of purpley because of the colour that was already on my stencil. Make sure your stencils are clean. And I like to do this sort of kind of the swirly sort of method. I think I get better results than doing this. You can do that, but you know, yeah, I think I prefer this method. I think it gets in all the little parts, and it gives you a nice crisp, even stencil. Now, this is just setting the scene underneath for all our design work, and it's just when I looked at the inspo pictures, I'm actually okay if this comes out a little bit purple. I was just thinking because I've got purple underneath, haven't I? Just brushing around there. You shouldn't really kind of brush into it, but now you can use tacky spray to hold it down, or masking tape if you're doing side fronts, but not everybody has that. And if you just hold on to it properly, you should be able to, you know, just maneuver your hands around to make sure you've got it kind of all under control and it isn't moving around. Now, I think that's as good as I'm going to get it, and it should be nice and crisp and perfect. There we go. And it has got little purpley bits in it, but you know, I'm going to roll with that. So that's how crisp your stenciling should be. And it's crisp because there's no texture on this. If I did this on the sides where all the texture was, it would be a different ball game. You'd have little parts that are not as crisp. But when you're, and I'm going to be adding more texture as we go, so they're going to be coming a little bit more sort of blurry as we go, but that's how it should look. So I'm just making my way round and doing the background of the back panel as well. So just same twirly, twirly, swirly, swirly, all the way around. Now, I was thinking about what questions I might get asked, and one of them might be, what stencil is this? Unfortunately, I have lots of stencils, but I don't actually know where they've all came from throughout the time that I've had them. I always think a good place, if you don't have a problem with buying from Amazon, is Amazon. Just go on and get stencils from there, or when we bring out our stencils, get them from us. But Martin will drop you a couple of links of some of the places I get stencils from. But I don't kind of don't always remember what even the name of them was. It's just I just normally pick one that I quite like out of the set, and then when I get the whole, like, because I normally buy them in sets or individual ones, I buy one if I really really like it, like my big lotus flowers and things like that. I'll buy one, and you'll pay a bit more for a big an A4 sort of one that you like, and then I just subsidize my stencil stash with these cheaper ones, and they do a treat, especially like this, the likes of this one here. I'm just getting a bit more paint. This one here is good for a sort of background, and it just takes a wee bit of time to get your background on, but you can see what I'm doing, and it's a kind of fail-safe way that I kind of show you. It's you just swirl the paint in the holes. You shouldn't get bleed through. You shouldn't get a whole load of anything really if you offload your paint. It's all about how much paint you have on your brush. I'm getting down to the bottom here. Just my hands are getting pretty sticky, but yeah. How much paint? If you have loads of paint, it's bound to go under your stencil. I find stenciling, you get far less bleed through with a chalk paint. It kind of absorbs any sort of liquid as you're going around it. You get far less with a chalk paint than you do others. But you still will get bleed through it if you've got too much paint on your brush. So you just need a tiny little bit. And you don't need fancy stencil brushes either. You'll see me as I go along. I'm just using artist brushes. This one here is a stencil brush, but you don't need everything to start stenciling. When I got to this part here, what I did with just this tiny part is I just moved it down slightly like that, and I just ran it along there at the bottom. Now you can go along and you can put this back in the center if you want every little spot, but I'm not going to be too bothered about this because there's going to be things covering this up, but I've kind of started now, so I'll finish. Yeah, and it's a little bit, I mean, it's not 100% straight either, because I'm going to be putting other designs on here. I think I'm definitely doing it on the front cupboards, but maybe I might just put a little bit of design down here. It's got 2 shelves to go in as well, so I might break up my pattern. So yeah, so I'm just going to go on and I'm going to set up for the front cupboards and the drawers. Okay, so I want some apertures to put my stencil in. All I've done is I've went on to Google and I've typed in Moroccan silhouette. This is what I found. I printed it out on A4. You know the sheets that come on stamps, or you can use Mylar, but I've got this, so I'm just going to use this. All I'm going to do is, I want to give myself a little bit extra in case I want to cut any more shapes. I'm going to use the exterior of this, and I am just, now I went and I'm doing this on top of the piece which has got all the texture on it, so it's a little bit lumpy bumpy, but I'm going to try my best to follow a nice clean line around this. And then all we're going to do is we're going to use, we're going to use this as an aperture to paint into, or we're going to paint into it, and then we're going to use a raised stencil technique over the top of this. So as per most of my sort of designs, it is a layered look. This, you just need to be patient. There's lots of layers, there's lots of drying in between. So once you've got this far, I'm just going to cut some of the excess off this because I might want to make another one of these and I want to reuse this. So just cut that off. Now, the best way, because I've got knives in the cupboard, but I can't be bothered to do that, is just to fold it over. And if you do something like this, just cut a circle out of it. It should be enough to just get your scissors in and cut the, sorry Martin, this isn't easy to film, is it? Cut the rough out of it first, because then you're going to have much more room to manoeuvre your scissors around until you've got something like this. You'll probably see it better on here. And then all I'm going to do is, as carefully as I can, I'm just going to cut this shape out. And we're going to use this as a sort of aperture so that it does two things. It gives you a good aperture, but also it means that any subsequent shapes that you do on your piece, you can do this and it keeps them all the same. So I'm not going to watch you watch what you're not. I'm going to not watch. I'm not going to make you watch this. You tried to help me there, Martin. But I'm just going to cut this out and get set up with my next lot of paint, and we'll get to the front. Okay, so I've stuck it on. I've put a black Sharpie mark around it. It kind of helps if you make something like this, because then that way you know where you're putting it, because sometimes when it's so clear like that you can't actually see. I'm just taping off, stop me having too much movement. I don't know whether maybe I'll put this one and then move it up and do the other. I'm not quite sure yet. Let's just see with this one first. So in here, this is the hornflower that I used to make the brown round here, and the stuff I dabbed in the middle to lighten it up, the Versailles, and a little bit of burgundy, and this is the sort of colour that I've got. Now, I want it to be solid, but not too solid, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to go around my edges first, because they're the parts that I do want it to be more solid than not solid. I think I'm explaining that. Over the top of this. And you can have a little bit of that pattern where we stenciled it showing through, because that makes it look quite good if you do that. These edges here, there. That gives it a kind of worn look as well. Something like that, I think, is good. Now, I'm going to let this dry, because what I'm going to do then is I'm going to get a roller, and the this colour here, the greeny blue, which I don't have much of. Actually, I'm not going to get a roller because I've actually got quite a lot left in my sponge. I think I might just sponge on some of that blue before we go over the top of that with a sort of greeny blue. I think we're going to hit upon there. So just let this dry and we'll come back and, sorry, there's a lumpy bit that was offending me there. I mean, I could take it off and just give me 1 minute and I'll zhuzh it with the blower. So I've just got the same sponge, and this is all I've really got left to do these. So, you know, I just want a little bit of a suggestion. Heating it up, just be careful when you're heating it up, because it kind of melts your mylar, your plastic a wee bit. So just kind of hold it down. You just want something kind of up in there. Let's give it some bits a wee bit darker. And this just adds something a wee bit extra when you go to do something over the top of it. And I think that's probably, maybe it's got a bit watery all over this, maybe something like that here. Yeah, I'm just going to take this off, and this is what you should have. Now I'm thinking I will probably, I'll just keep it one shape, or will I do no, I think I'll just do one on both doors, and I might do something like this and this on the top half. Yeah, so you'll see when you come back there'll be two of these, and this will be done on these drawers too, and then we'll get to what we're going to do on this. So I'm adding a darker green now. This is Annie Sloane's Florence. I just need enough for my raised stencils, so maybe about this much. And I've got some bentonite clay in this bag, and I'm thinking I want it thick to do my stencils, but I don't want it too thick, so maybe that's a bit much. See what happens once we mix it together. So you just like mix your colours and your clay, and I can already tell that that's a little bit thick. There. Now, raised stencils are really easy. It's just the same drill as you were stenciling, but you just use a different receptacle. So at this juncture, I'm using a palette knife to scrape it in. I ended up with way more than, but I have got quite a few to do, so this will be fine. So you want to get your lumps out your clay, give it a good mash down, smooth it out. There, that's about the sort of consistency that I think will work nicely. Make sure all your clay is mixed in. So you just kind of start with a good, I've taped my stencil on, it's the same one that did this. I'm just going to do this part and move it up and down, holding it with 2 fingers. You're going to just, like you're icing a cake. That's the only way I can use to describe it. Just like you're icing a cake. Now you will have to clean your stencils between application because they get a bit clogged up, and then it'll make for a messy raised stencil when you do. Now you've got to bear in mind your burgundy shapes under here, so you don't want to be running off that. You don't want it going on to the white if you can help it. If it does, it's not going to be the end of the world. But so just make sure you've done one, clean off your stencil so that you get a nice crisp edge. Now, as I said, it's just like icing in a cake. You're just smoothing it round, making sure there's not too many big lumpy parts. I'm going to do this here because you can see my stencil moving, and that will make sure that it does not crisp underneath. If I do that up to that little corner there, I think I maybe went slightly over there underneath. And that's all I'm going to do for this. I'll wait a minute so you can show me. So, no, I don't want to show my words, so I can show you. You're not showing me. Oh dear. And as you can see, this kind of style just it's loads of layers. I'm going to make sure that I've got all my paint off there. I don't want it. And remove the tape. And this is how it should look. What I'll be doing next is just applying it on this edge here. So you're going to have to move your tape for this. So onto this edge here, and just taping this down here and doing the same here. And we'll get this edge done as well. We'll maybe get the top and bottom done without having to clean our stencil, but again, you don't want to be making a mess of this. You've came too far with this one. Yeah, I'm going to make a mess of it. Just going to do that and lift it off. I've got these edges here, so I'm going to apply it on each side now, and the top, so that I've got my raised stencil done. And then we'll get to thinking of raised stenciling for around the edges. Okay, so this is hardened now, and all we're going to do is just kind of dry brush a little bit round the shape, because you've got a raised stencil there, and just give it a little bit of wee bit of movement and a little bit of a highlight. Not too much, just enough. That's enough. I only did half up the top. I thought it was just going to look a wee bit too much, so I didn't do that. Now, I I've got a little bit of this green left and I don't want to waste it, so I'm just going to sort of here and there just touch some of the green, the darker green on the piece. Not a huge amount, maybe run some of it down the bottom, something like that, just so it's not wasted because it dries up pretty quick. Next thing I'm going to do is I've found another stencil here. Yes, it's not very clean either. And I've got the initial purple that I started with. I am going to make up some more. Am I or am I not? I was wondering whether I would do here raised. No, actually, I'm actually just going to stencil. So I'll give you a quick look of how this is going to look. Just so you know. So just put my purple, offloading it on my mat. And obviously the whole thing isn't going to fit on, so it's just, you know, kind of trial and error of where you want it. Now you can change your colours as you go along. So I've got purple, and so say I wanted to add a little bit of the yellow, I could do some yellow, but I'm not entirely sure how much the yellow will stand out. We'll have a look in a minute. It might look okay, and that way you're kind of like giving it another little bit of interest, and that's like kind of different stenciling. So you can add other colours to your stencil as well. So if I added a little bit of yellow up here, and when you remove it, this is how it'll look. So I'm going to do this around the edges, and by adding the yellow and it being on the yellow, it's giving that faded look. It's kind of darker in some areas and lighter in other areas, and that just gives something another bit of interest when you're using stencils. So here we did the raised stencil, and we can brush over the top of them like I've just showed you to highlight them. You can do a whole piece like that just by raised stencils and highlighting, or you can rub them over with gold if you're doing a piece like that. But I'm just going to go round these edges, and I might just do a wee band along the top here, just on top of this edge here, and then we will get to the next part. Okay, so I've got it the way I like it now, and all I'm doing is going back to the original yellow, and that's why you keep everything. And I'm quite messily, and the messily part is the part that gives it the look that you're wanting. I'm messily highlighting everything out now. I'm just going around my doors messily. I'm going to put a bit more in here and up in here than I would, and bring it down on here. And all I'm doing is highlighting and kind of giving it all a bit of interest now around the doors. That's all I'm doing. And the same up here on my cupboards, just something like this. And as you can see, the messier, I always think, because it gives it that sort of distressed look that I like. You don't have to, you can do it really tidily, or you don't have to bother doing this step if you don't want to, but the yellow really brings everything out and makes it all pop now. And that is this bottom part for now. There's not going to be too much more to complete on this front section. It's just that before I can move on to the top half, I need to sand all this now, because the texture was on the top and the sides, and the same on the top piece. I need to sand that, and I'll get set up and I'll just show you what I'm doing with that so that you can see the sanding part. So I've got a tough heavy grit and a sort of lighter grit sandpaper. What I'm doing now is where I put all that texture, that yumminess, I'm just sanding back to reveal the colour underneath. I'll wipe it away, but you have to keep, maybe, I mean, this is the point where you kind of make your decision whether you want to go a bit heavier and get heavier grit and really rub down into it like that. Now, you must always wear a mask when you're doing something like this. So, and obviously I'm going to wipe the dust off, but this is how this will reveal, so that you're going to have, now I'm not going to do all of it, I'm just going to lightly do where I feel there's texture worthy of sanding. Quite a lot on the edges, because that's where I put it. And so I'm going to sand the top, the size of this unit, the size of the actual piece that I've just painted, and then we can get on to decorating this part. But I didn't want because there's bits at the top here that I want, at the front, that I want to sand, and it'd be counterproductive to put the design on then have to sand it. So this is where I'm at with this. Okay, all I'm doing now is I'm just painting the two shelves that were white, green, and I'm just going to let them dry to the side while we do our design on the top section. And we're creeping closer to the end. So I'll get on and do this, and then we'll see what we're going to do on the top half. So as before, I just got a shape and I've made a sort of aperture. I've cut it because I want it to fit up around here, but my first shape is going to be here. I think that's pretty much central. We'll know when I stand back and it isn't. And then I'll cut a little bit off it to get the shorter piece. No, I'll probably do the bigger, but then it won't match up. I'll just forge on and we'll see what happens. Probably a whole load of wrongness. I'm using the red that I used before to do the inside of the stenciling. Now this time I just want, again, the suggestion of a shape with maybe, it doesn't all have to be filled in. So something like this. I'm wondering whether I might do this. I'm just going to be bold about this, and if it doesn't all work out along the way, well, we can all laugh about it, can't we? We could all laugh. I'm going to put it here on this side, because I bet you it doesn't. Okay, now is the moment of truth, because I'm gonna cut it now. So let's just see if it's gonna one. Oh well, we'll see. You notice how I'm just forging on. Maybe I should. So I'm just kind of like gonna go all the way along here. I'm not saying I'm not filming it in case it doesn't all fit in. It's just that you've seen me do this kind of all the way along now, so you know what I'm doing. And this one here doesn't fit in, but I'm not cutting any more off it, but I'll have nothing left by the time we get to the other end. All I'm doing now is I'm just getting another piece of a stencil, and I'm just manipulating it up into the gap, and I am just going along the shape that I've made with this stencil. And after this, we shall be putting on our yellow distress down the sides, and kind of starting to kind of do this sort of finishing up touches. I'm not going to put anything in the back of there. I like it just exactly the way it is, and I think any more, even for me, it's going to look a bit busy. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just finishing this up, and then we'll get to putting some yellow on, and then probably, oh, I want to show you the handles. I'll show you the handles when I do the yellow part, and then we'll let it dry, this part dry, and we'll get to sealing this piece. I just didn't think that when I stood back that this little shape that I put up here was kind of standing out. So all I'm doing is using my acrylic pen just to kind of highlight around the edges. That's all I'm doing. So as I did before, with no sort of rhyme and reason, think of this the same way as you do your palette knife. You're just adding some interest onto it in various parts. You're just kind of highlighting it, that's all you're doing. And as messy as you possibly can. I'm probably going to put my brush on the side and go, and you can see it's not like I don't want a solid line. I'm kind of like doing some of it and then not other parts, just because it gives it that sort of distress look. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing here now. I'm just waiting for finishing off the shells to dry. Oh, I was going to show you the handles. Hang on a minute, I'll just quickly get them. Where did it? Here they are. I like to look through vintage things, and I found these, which I thought were pretty sweet. I'm not going to clean them up. I'm going to keep them tarnished like this because it suits the look. Don't know why I did that. So this is the handles that I'm going to be putting on this piece. It kind of upgrades it from a sort of cheaper end of piece of furniture to something a little bit more special, I think. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thoroughly seal the piece. I've already kind of cheated, I've sealed the top already, but I use French Chic Tough Top Coat. I find that really hard to say. Soft brush, make sure you give it 2 good solid coats, and once I've done this, I'll get Martin to put the vintage handles on and we'll be ready for the reveal. Okay, so we're finished. And all I really used was one stencil, a tiny little bit off another one for the top part. We made the rest. How did we do it to make it? Well, it's not a. When I say it's a cheap end of furniture, it's because it's not vintage, and vintage is really solid and heavy. It's a quality piece of furniture. It's just pine. So what can you do with pine? Plain pine. We covering it in layers of paint and giving it a bit of distress back, lots of interest. That way really helps. It takes away that sort of square blockiness that this had. Putting a stencil on the back really helped because suddenly now it's just pulled it all together. Putting the stencil on the front, doing our sort of Moroccan sort of shape. Really, this isn't too difficult. It's quite actually muted for me, and I obviously just kept the shelves, just the green that had been in the bottom. Now I want to show you the handles, because handles on a cheaper end piece of furniture, especially if you've got a pair. Do you want me to get close? I don't want me to get close. You can come close, Matt, and come close to me, darling. Handles like this on a different piece of furniture like this instantly give it a is it old? The top gives it away. You know it's not old, but it gives it a lift. It gives it that special look that the vintage handles. And if you have got any spare, I know they're not a thing that everybody has knocking about, but if you've got some vintage handles and you're putting new handles in something else, save all your hardware. Another giveaway for furniture like this, and you're wanting to give it a glow up and you don't want the customer to know, is paint the inside. Paint your inside of your furniture a coordinating colour, something that gives it a bit of a pop. So when you do your staging photos and you want to sell it, you can open it up. You can stage it with one door closed and one door open, put something in it, give a different perspective on the look of your furniture. So painting it inside, and this was just, I overmixed too much of the purple initially, and so why not use what you've made up? It's just a waste of paint otherwise, and then you end up putting a lid on it and you maybe don't get around to using it for ages. So use up your bits of paint inside by eradicating all of that pine. Staging furniture, always do a wee bit of something. I just used the colours in that to repaint this. I did it a wee while ago for another piece of furniture, just to kind of give it the same sort of vibe. That's been it for today. If you have really enjoyed this piece of furniture and you want to see more furniture upcycles or reimagining furniture into something different, then this is the channel for you. Give me a comment, give me a thumbs up, share it if you want to share it, and if you haven't already subscribed, why not? And I've been Leo, and this is obviously Martin behind the camera, and we've been made by Marley, and I'll see you again another day. Thank you.